It was just about 3 weeks ago in 2026, about just before the forest fires started. And I remember this jogger like running off in front of me, like there's no way I can catch him. I was about 3 miles deep in the trail. Well, if you think that Sasquatch is the big furry creature, you've been baffled. I probably have about 3 definitions. Yes, one is the big hairy creature. The second one is the stick squatch, the ones that are kind of like spiritual. And then the third one are these. They kind of look like cats or lions when I describe them. But the first thing I want you to notice is how big the head is compared to the jogger. It's about 3 times as big as the normal head. And I like to say she. I don't know if these are he's or she's. I know they're a type of Sasquatch that I've been seeing since 2019. But let's just say she is holding a staff, a Bigfoot staff. And she is also wearing a crown. She is wearing a crown on top of her head. And the helicopters went by, and I was about 200 feet from this point. But you can see how big she is. Their arms, I think their arms are kind of smaller on some of them. They're kind of like gigantic looking raccoons, so to speak, or lions, kind of like, I describe them as lions. I don't know what else you would say. But they're not the big hairy creatures. But there's something more fascinating besides the crown, the Bigfoot staff, and how big on the side of the trail. As I walked up there's a bunch of sticks lined up about 6 feet long, maybe 20 different little small sticks that look like Chinese writing. And I remember intuitively saying something to myself, like, what is your name? That's what I heard. And I screamed out my name, Damien, Damien. And I said it a few times, like 5 or 6 times. But as I looked over, like, this is our normal viewing point of looking for Bigfoot. But watch when I go up into the trees. Now this, in the middle, is a Sasquatch. And this is another type of Sasquatch. The other one I told you, the stick squatches. And it's in a blind. It has set up a blind. I guess they have some kind of cloaking camouflage. It's kind of like those mirror panel things that they have, like one of those. But you can tell like the 5 or 6 sticks. If you look at the trees, and there's no way there's 3 limbs below it. And it's sitting there in a blind. And they have some kind of mechanism. See this square thing? At the top of it, there is a hook on it of trees. Like they have some kind of baskets that they move around. But anyways, it's in a blind watching me. And it's totally fascinating. But wait till I show you some fascinating things about the big one. Now I'm going to point out one last thing. On this one is the trees. You can see the faces in the trees. There's 1 and there's 2 right here and there. And then the proximity. Okay, so the other sighting I had this day, 2026. I've been seeing them since 2019. A lot of them are timestamps, but I have like some reason they like intellectually connect to me. Like no matter where I go and no matter what I do, I end up seeing Bigfoot, and it's totally true. I can't even go out this year because there's a drought for 6. It has a stick that's looks like a T sideways, and a glowing orb that it's holding in its stomach. Now, just like the other one that had a glowing staff and she was wearing a crown, this one has a glowing stick that's holding and a glowing orb that it's carrying. But if you look around in the trees, you can see the many, many faces, and it's not nostalgia. But if you look in between the trees, you can see what looks like another figure, and they kind of totem pole. Like for some reason, they'll put themselves on top of each other, like they'll carry their young, and they'll be like in groups, and like one big one in the background, one small one in this smaller and bigger. Like they just all grew up, so group up, so they look like one Bigfoot, but they're like actually a whole bunch of them. And there's something more fascinating I just wanted to point out. And this, I believe, is a Bigfoot sled or a type of technology. I believe this is some kind of Bigfoot sled or technology. Now, I was just pointing out how they have some primitive baskets that they use for harvesting. But I see these things, and I think they have some kind of hovercraft and hoverboards that they can move around on. And I've seen them many, many times before.